So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Namaste, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you to the 39th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament. We're very happy to welcome all our speakers for today, all the teen MPs and influencers to this parliamentary session. To start the 39th Parliamentary Session and do a formal welcome, I would request Aashi Gupta to please take over the mic and do the welcome address for the 39th Parliamentary Session. Aashi Gupta, over to you.
Thank you so much. Esteemed guests, respected speakers, and my fellow changemakers, it is an absolute honor to welcome you all to the 39th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament. Tonight, we gather as young leaders, visionaries, and advocate for change, ready to engage in impactful discussions that shape our future. We are privileged to have an incredible lineup of speakers with us today. Mr. Amit Sharma, whose work in healthcare and CSR continues to make a difference in countless lives. Honorable Mr. Discent Bajila, a dedicated leader driving change in Zimbabwe's National Assembly. Honorable Malunga Phiri, a remarkable parliamentarian from Malawi, championing progress and development. And of course, Mr. Daksh Gaur, the driving force behind the World Teen Parliament, empowering voices like us to take charge and lead. As we embark on this session, let's remember that the power of idea, dialogue, and action lies in our hands. Let's make the most of this opportunity to learn, inspire, and create change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aashi, for the welcome and the start of the 39th Parliamentary Session. Let me invite the first speaker for today for their opening address of this parliamentary session. A very warm welcome to Mr. Amit Sharma, the Chief Information Officer and Head of CSR and Partnerships for Cytecare Hospitals, Bengaluru, Karnataka, India. Amit, over to you for your opening address of the parliamentary session.
Thank you, Aashi, for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be part of this session out there. And as you both have mentioned, I think it's a great platform for the youth to get introduced to some of the work which is done across sectors, across countries. And I feel really privileged to be amongst some of the policymakers of different countries, especially my African friends out there. So, just a little bit about the work that we are doing in our own capacity in the space of cancer care. I am a cancer scientist by education, and I'm also working in the hospital as an administrator. This hospital is in operation for about 9 years now, and we have impacted close to 40,000 lives, of which we are very, very, very proud that we have been able to actually touch lives of more than 2,500 patients outside India, and many of them are from the African countries also. Now, in terms of the prevalence of the cancer, unfortunately, the reality is that cancer is one of the most, if not the most, growing non-communicable disease, both in Western world as well as the developing nations. And the biggest problem in the space of cancer care is the economic challenges which is being faced. Many of you probably who would not have born, but Daksh would know, there was similar challenge that had happened in the space of AIDS in about 2 decades back. And fortunately, India led that fight on its own. So happy to be part of this and would be happy to interact with you, answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Amitji, for the opening address of the 39th Parliamentary Session. You're very right when you say that kids can be amazing change makers. They can start conversations very easily. They can go far deep than any other individual in different parts of the society. So thank you so much. Let me invite the next speaker for today for the opening address of the parliamentary session. A very warm welcome to Mr. Discent Bajila, who's a member of parliament from the Parliament of Zimbabwe. Mr. Discent, Honorable Discent, sir, over to you for the opening address of the parliamentary session, and a very warm welcome.
It is my pleasure to address this session of the World Teen Parliament. I have to say that I feel very much honored to be able to participate in this session. And I think that the World Teen Parliament is a great idea in the sense that it introduces young people at their teenage to ideas of change, to ideas of public participation, to ideas of sharing hope with their peers across the world. The technologies that have emerged in our world over the past few years have given rise to a lot of opportunities for young people to express themselves around issues that affect them. And I would like to challenge members of the World Teen Parliament to keep themselves abreast about emerging technologies and always find ways through which they can express themselves, through which they can share ideas, through which they can amplify voices about numerous issues affecting themselves as young people and the communities that they live. It is essential that social media, it is essential that digital tools and digital spaces be used progressively by younger people to share their experiences, to teach one another how to behave and how to conduct themselves under certain circumstances. However, there are other challenges that are affecting not only young people, but general communities we live in, that teenagers need to have a voice on. We have issues around environmental health. Global warming is affecting our communities, and young people who are in the teenagehood are having a lot of education around these things. And as they take action around tree planting, around teaching and basically conscientizing their communities around it, the digital spaces could be used to share hope for a better world, because we have only one world, there is no other. There is no replacement for the world we live in.
Thank you so much, sir, for the opening address. And you're very right. We only have one word. We don't have any other option. And everything that happens anywhere in the whole world affects every single individual. We have to understand the whole world is really like a family. We'll have to treat each other like family. Thank you so much, sir. Let me invite the third speaker for today for the opening address. A very warm welcome to Honorable Ben Malunga Phiri, the Member of Parliament from Malawi, National Assembly, Malawi. Sir, over to you for the opening address. Please unmute yourself and start your video, and a very warm welcome.
Let me applaud the Teen World Parliament for such an initiative. This is the kind of a school that we need for future leaders. Allow me to thank my fellow members of Parliament from different parts of this world for accepting to be part of this important conversation this afternoon. Allow me on the onset to say, we cannot talk about the future if the future itself is not involved. The youth, the teens are the future of tomorrow. Now, people have asked the question, when is tomorrow? Tomorrow is defined by one's ability and preparation that one is given. This particular session reminds me when we are in the chamber, when we are in Parliament, and we discuss different issues, be it economy, be it agriculture, whatever it is to shaping their needs and the economy of our country. Allow me, therefore, to invite all the teens who are here today to look at politics as the governing arm of our nations. It is politics that governs. Therefore, politicians are part of the equations. And they must, I have always told people, very few people in this world who are graduates of the political science class, politics, particularly in African politics. But it is the street business school, like the ones that we're having now, that will shape somebody's political future into a practical life of a politician. Now, what do we expect from the teens? My expectations, or what I would advise the teens, is to develop an interest and understand how politics governs our nations. If nations are at war today, it is politicians who are at fault. If nations are lagging behind in developments and in economy, it is politicians that are involved. If nations are not advanced technologically, it is politicians that are involved. Therefore, as teens, one has got to say, what sort of politics do I want to, what sort of a politician do I want to be? Now, if supposingly you don't want to be a politician in future because you don't want to be part of a problem, then what sort of contribution can you do to your country?
Thank you so much, sir, for the opening address of this parliamentary session. I think all the teen MPs and influencers have listened to all the three guests for today. Now we will be starting with the question hour, where these teenagers will be asking questions to the dignitaries, and they can ask you questions. Most importantly, before we start this leg of the parliamentary session today, Remember that if you are invited to ask your question, make sure that your video is on. Introduce yourself first before asking the question. And if you want to ask a follow-up question to the guest, please take their permission that can you ask a follow-up question or not. Once they've answered your question, at least show your gratitude and thank them for the answer. I hope everyone is ready for moderating the complete question hour. I would request Vaidehi Parekh to please take on the mic and start inviting the teen MPs and influencers for the questions for our honorable guests. Vaidehi, over to you. Please introduce yourself and start with the questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Warm greetings to everyone. My name is Vaidehi Parekh. I'm a MP at 4th World Teen Parliament, currently studying in Indian Language School, Nigeria. I know we all have been eagerly waiting to interact with today's inspirational figures. So without further ado, let us start with the questionnaires. Our first question is from Manasvini Kadian.
My question to you is, how, according to you, as a Chief Information Officer of such a big healthcare organization, can a teen lead an organization or enterprise? For example, a personal brand.
First and foremost, we have to get out of this
Yes, sir.
mindset that a single person or an individual can lead an organization or can make a change. I think it's I am a firm believer of a collective action, and the space where I'm working on, in the space of a cancer or organization, the problem is so huge that even a government alone can't do anything unless all the stakeholders come together. And when I mentioned at the start of my speech, or rather the introduction, I mentioned out there is that cancer is a growing menace for the society. So when I'm working in the organization, one role which I play is of a chief information officer, which is basically managing the information systems. But for our organization point of view, I think the most important task is to utilize the data which is generated from the operations of a hospital and get better insight and help the society as well as government policies makers to give them some insight of how cancer is growing and how we can help in reducing that menace. So in that context, I think I feel, as I mentioned, uh, the worldwide data shows that the cancer can be prevented only if you find it in a very early stage. There are actually 4 stages in cancer, stage 1 to stage 4. So, unfortunately, if you find a cancer in stage 3 and stage 4, then you move away from treatment to only managing the disease. And stage 1 and stage 2 are when you can manage, when you can cure the disease. And there, specifically, the early detection is an important part, as well as getting the core expertise available under one roof. So in that context, hospital like us, we interact with government. There is a concept called as National Cancer Grid concept in India, where the Center for Excellences in the space of cancer care, they come together, we interact, we exchange ideas, we exchange data. And if there is something which is happening in one particular center or one particular geography, it is immediately shared, because time is the essence in fight against cancer. So in that context, uh, say from a youth perspective, I would give you an example. I mean, there is one live example that we have seen in our own hospital, or rather in our own geography. I don't know how many of you know, but do read about the importance or criticality of blood for the treatment of cancer patient. So just to give you an idea, a cancer patient on an average requires 100 unit of blood in its lifespan of treatment. Now you imagine a single family whose patient is undergoing treatment, they will never be able to get 100 unit of blood. They will have to rely on society, on the ecosystem around them. And in that scenario, we were very fortunate that we were working with some of the schools in our vicinity. We shared this sort of a real time problem, and that too during COVID, when Bangalore was actually struggling to find the donors because people have vanished.
The next question is from Sharon Natalie.
To you all, I'm Sharon Natalie from St. Thomas Catholic International College, Sri Lanka. My question goes out to Mr. Ben Malunga. Malawi faces high youth unemployment. So, what innovative programs or partnerships is the government pursuing to equip young people with the skills needed for sustainable employment in the modern economy?
Thank you very much, Sharon Natalie, for that important question. True, you've got proper statistics of Malawi. Malawi, indeed, just like many African countries, faces high unemployment rate. And as you're aware that when you have a high unemployment rate, there may be a number of reasons or factors, one of which is rapid population growth. You may have your population growing at a faster rate, thereby your economy failing to absorb the much needed human resource. But at the same time, you're aware that rapid population growth can be an opportunity if you well harness it. Because then you've got cheap labor which accompanies it. You've got readily available labor that comes with it. In the case of Malawi, what is Malawi doing to making sure that it mitigates the same? Quite a number of things that are there. Number one is the introduction. We did introduce what are called the technical colleges. We never had the technical colleges before. So we now have got technical vocational schools. These schools equips people youngsters to have skills like bricklaying, plumbing, carpentry, and others. You may be interested, Sharon, to note that even if you have a PhD today and you've got an electric bulb problem in your house, you are not going to call your fellow PhD holder to come and fix your bulb. You will need somebody with a skill. Now, once these people have got skills, then they create jobs within themselves, because one will open up a garage that fixes cars, another one will open up a carpentry shop that will do that. Now, that is the growth of economy, because then you are now graduating the poor into the middle income sector. So the youth will now be able to push themselves up once you give them proper skills within the industry. That's number one. Number two, we have opened up in Malawi what we are calling mega farms. And what we are saying is, previously farming in Malawi was taken as an old man's trade, where after retirement, people now go farming. But we are saying in an agri-based economy like Malawi, we can no longer afford to take agriculture as an old man's trade. We are now taking it as a youthful trade where you make it sexy. The adverts that are to do with the farming, we should get a tin with a hole there or with a cow there milking to show that at least it's an industry that is upcoming and that the youngsters as well can get into it. Once we get this up and running, our GDP will grow. We will be able to grow the industries, thereby creating more jobs for even our youth. And finally, we have expanded our universities because we discovered that a lot of people were indeed failing to get a job. Not at all times were they failing to get a job, having graduated for the university, but some of them did not have any education past the secondary education. As such, most of the jobs they could not qualify. And now we are saying, let's expand our universities to accommodate more students. As we do that, we're bridging the gap of those seeking for employment and to those that are employed to make sure that at least the gap is narrowed. So I fully agree with you, but we're putting strides together to make sure that the needs of the youth in terms of skills, whether it be music industry, whether it be in the farming and everything, we are mitigating the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Next question is from Aleena Aejaz. Aleena, please unmute yourself.
I am Aleena Aejaz from Grade 8 Lucent Global School, India. And I am an influencer at the 4th World Teen Parliament. And my question is to Honorable Bajila Collins, if I'm pronouncing it right. How can government and policymakers effectively engage with young people to address the unique health challenge faced by adolescents and youth in Africa? And what policies would you propose to support their well-being?
Thank you so much for the question, which basically requires me to make a proposal on the best way by which governments can keep continuous interaction with younger people so that they can be in a position to attend their issues. Zimbabwe runs the parliamentary portfolio committee system where each government ministry has a portfolio committee that does oversight on it. I think that this is a model that may need to be adopted globally, such that parliamentary portfolio committees have sessions through which they interact with younger people and get their views. Much of the use of modern digital tools of interaction, because one of the things that I've seen that the portfolio committees in Zimbabwe are not doing right is that most of the interactions are centralized and physical. But young people of these days prefer digital interactions so that they may not need to be physically at the same place with the people that they are consulting. So that hybrid kind of situation where there is more interaction on both digital and physical space, that is one way through which interaction between young people and legislators could be enhanced. But also, parliament and the electoral systems across the world need to create quota systems for young people through proportional representation so that there be specific quotas using which younger people can occupy seats in parliament and speak of challenges facing young people from their own experiences. That's very important, that the experiences of young people need to be expressed in spaces of legislation, in spaces of policy implementation by young people themselves. And the proportional representation election, as well as a change in electoral systems, can accommodate more young people into these decision-making spaces, because it is not only about the voice of young people getting to the ears of legislators, but it is also about young people participating and being physically part of the processes of implementing the issues that they suggest. Lastly, it is important that young people organize themselves and be able to establish institutions using which their voices can be heard. These institutions could be from a civil society perspective. These institutions could be youth wings of political parties. These institutions could be church-based or religious institutions that interact with younger people. So what is important, in short, is that the voices of young people need to be expressed by themselves. Secondly, there needs to be as much platforms as possible that are youth-friendly for collecting these views of young people. Thirdly, young people need to be part of the spaces where the implementation of their suggestions is done. And lastly, these institutions need not be just limited to political spaces. Even non-political spaces like religious institutions, like civic institutions, need to be part of the organization of young people. I thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
I would just like to add one thing before we move on to the next question. You very well mentioned an important point that there must be more forums where teenagers or young people can come and interact with policymakers. And for this very purpose, the World Teen Parliament does something very interesting called the World Teen Parliament Voting Debates, that all these teen MPs and influencers will now be organizing across nearly 50 plus cities in more than 25 countries across the world this year at the World Teen Parliament, which is basically a process of aspiration assimilation, taking the opinions of youth from all over the world and trying to understand how those aspirations can be met by policymakers. So thank you so much, sir, for that response. Vaidehi, over to you for the next question.
Next question is from MP Mihika P Jain.
The question that I wanted to ask was towards Amit Sharma, Mr. Amit Sharma. Sir, I wanted to ask, what would you say is the most game-changing policy, or what could be the most game-changing policy that will really aid in curing cancer or helping change the health dynamics in the country?
A very, very nice question. And unfortunately, there is no single answer, but there are few pointers which have been discussed in various forums. Uh, so, to be honest, I think both. I will try and mix both the government policies as well as the societal action, which is very, very important. So, just to give you a perspective, one of the top three cancer in India, and maybe I would say even equally valid for Africa also, is the oral cancer. And the most important reason for that cancer, oral cancer, is tobacco chewing and smoking. So both in terms of policy as well as engaging society, if we are able to build up that sort of a pressure within the society on the government to ensure that there is some policy which comes in to try and kind of push back the consumption of tobacco in the society, uh, which government is doing in its own way but not sufficient, is something which could be a game changer, I would say, because tobacco not only causes oral cancer, but it also affects, because nicotine also has a propensity to cause various other types of cancer. So both, as I said, and when we are talking to a youth out there, I think the age in which you people are, most of you, it's a habit forming age also. So I think once you people understand the importance of raising awareness about the impact of substances like tobacco and smoking, you yourself will be able to actually bring an important change. I have myself seen in my personal experiences that when we speak to some corporate leaders, when we speak to adults and talk about the risk of cancer because of these substances, smoking, tobacco, hardly anyone listens and hardly anyone acts. But when we speak to students, we have seen examples where students have forced their parents, their family members to actually stop smoking or ensure that they go to the doctors and get themselves checked for the risk that they are carrying. So this is one example. Another important example is, both from a policy perspective as well as again a self action, is um, there is only one vaccine involved at this particular moment which can prevent at least 8 or 9 types of cancer, of which cervical cancer is the most important one. This is called a cervical cancer vaccine, and it has to be given to kids between 9 to 14. And as soon as we talk of cervical cancer, everybody thinks that it is only meant for female, and it's not the case. This vaccine has to be given both to boys and girls at the age of 9 to 14. And if you get those vaccines, there is almost 99% chance that you will not get cervical cancer in your lifetime. Now, just to give you a data, in the Indian context, only 2% of eligible population is having or is taking those vaccines. So just imagine the gap, the vast gap. Again, it's a question of policy. Government is trying to create a policy to include this cervical vaccine in the vaccination program, but before that, I think there is still a long gap. And students, again, who are in that same age group, they can read about the vaccine, they can interact with doctors, they can interact with I would say the subject matter experts, and then they can come out with their own way solution of how to raise awareness. In fact, that's one, I would say, a challenge, as honorary MP has mentioned in his opening remark, that we would like to throw out some sort of a challenges. So I would say that is my challenge to all of you young change makers out there, that you read about cervical cancer vaccine and you come out with some your own ideas, and I would be happy to actually interact and see if some of those ideas are interesting, and we'd be able to help in kind of taking to the concerned authorities and talk to them, and even to the hospitals, that how we can improve or increase the awareness about that.
That was a really insightful information you have provided us with.
In this area, you can focus your topics for the voting debates around this as well. We'll be happy to connect you with Amitji once we get your plans and schedules, and you can work on some interesting ideas to, increase awareness about this with Amitji, if Amitji allows the time for all of this.
Sure, sure. Would be more than happy. Would be more than happy.
Super. Very please, the next question.
Our next question is from MP Aashna Raghu. What is your opinion about the growing disillusionment, the growing global disillusionment of the current generation towards democracy and democratic structures? And in particular, what is the role that you think the government has played in creating this disillusionment?
For your question, really, if you ask me, I will tell you that I've got a different opinion altogether in as far as the disillusionment is concerned. I am a strong believer of one's future. I am a strong believer of creating a future that one wants. Therefore, democracy is and must form part of the greater big and teens or the youth are an important component on the same. I therefore believe that countries must create, number one, a component like the teens parliament as we have at the moment. I know for sure that most of the countries have got what they call youth parliaments. Do aid kids in having to make decisions in as far as disillusionment is concerned.
Next question is from MP Kinley Yangden.
Hello, my name is Kinley Yangden from Bhutan. My question is to Mr. Amit Sharma, and the question is, with the rise of AI and digital health solution, how do you ensure ethical data privacy for cancer patients while leveraging technology for better treatment outcomes? Thank you.
Hi, Kinley. Thanks for the very relevant question. In fact, not only healthcare, I think everybody in every sector is concerned about the use of ethics in managing data, whether it is health data, financial data, social data. So healthcare is also dealing with the same. But I think the important point to understand is that more so in healthcare when I'm talking, because the data generated from the hospitals and both private and government institution, you have to have a strong mechanism of creating a de-identified data within your system, which is not that difficult. You have to just create some robust system, uh, which is possible. I mean, you have to spend some extra time and efforts and maybe money. You create a layers and double layers of protection. So just to give you an example, I mean, we have the hospital information system, which is in-house located with a double layer where the data generated is encrypted before getting stored, and then there is a double layer of firewall. So that way we protect at least possible. I mean, to that extent, wherever we feel we are able to protect the attack on the data. But at the same time, we have to be very well aware, as I mentioned to you, that we just can't isolate ourselves from the global community, because the research has to have the data from different ecosystems, sharing of the information which is de-identified, but the clinical outcome data has to be shared both with government as well as the pharmaceutical research organization, to help them understand the impact of the treatment which is being given to the patients. And in that context, the ethics comes into the play. The organizations have to understand that patient is giving the consent, and first and foremost they have to be told to give the consent that the data can be shared for academic and research purposes.
Thank you so much, Vaidehi, for moderating the questions and managing the session very well. Let me invite Honorable Discent Collins to please give his concluding statement for the 39th Parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. Honorable Discent Collins.
Thank you so much for having me here. I have learned a lot and I would love to see more of these interactions, the very intelligent questions that I had from the teenagers, and also their understanding of challenges that they face in their communities, in their respective countries. I've had questions from Malawi, from India, from Blue. I'm really happy that at least out there are young people who are intelligent enough, who are also interested in seeing a better world where they live. I would love to see this happen quite a number of times, and possible prototype this in different countries. The Teen Parliament of Malawi, Teen Parliament of India, Teen Parliament of Canada, and so forth, so that more young people could have opportunities of participation. I'm really happy about what I've seen, and I wish to thank you for inviting me and being here, and also for my colleagues who also brought in some very interesting comments, particularly on the health sector. I heard quite a lot, and also the general issues of mass mobilization and public participation. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
I would now invite Mr. Amit Sharma for his concluding statements for the 39th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament.
Daksh and team out there. As Honorable MP has also mentioned, it's a pleasure to be amongst our next generation, and really amazed by the inquisitiveness of the generation in trying to solve the problems. What I would say is uh, just whatever you want to do as part of this 1 year kind of exhaustive and immersive program, which Daksh mentioned, don't think too much about the outcomes. I think the intent is very, very important. And even if you're able to understand the depth of the problems that you're trying to solve, I think those will create some sort of baseline for you to work and try and find solutions. I do understand you all have to work and study for your own academic work also. But I think, as we always say, I think knowledge is the starting point of finding solution for anything. So immerse yourself in any problem, be it health, be it policy, be it anything. So I would say, being in the cancer space and being a representative of a cancer hospital, more so in the privileged August company of some of the MPs out there, that I've told earlier also, a disease or a problem like cancer cannot be managed or handled alone by government. It requires a societal action. And for that purpose, I would say spend some time in understanding the root causes, and also I would say work on something which is something healthy living and practicing and staying away from substance. That's my message for you.
So much, Amitji, for the concluding remarks. I would now request Aashi Gupta to please present the vote of thanks and the conclusion for the 39th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament. Aashi, over to you.
Thanks, everyone. It is truly an honor to be part of this inspiring session of the World Teen Parliament. First and foremost, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speakers, Mr. Amit Sharma, Mr. Discent Bajila, and Honorable Ben Malunga Phiri. Thank you for taking the time to share your insights with us, and most importantly, for patiently answering our questions. Your knowledge and perspectives have given us so much to think about, and we truly appreciate your guidance. A huge thank you to Mr. Daksh Gaur and to the organizers and every member of the World Teen Parliament to make this event possible. Your dedication to empowering young voices globally is commendable. Lastly, to my fellow participants, your passion and enthusiasm drives this movement forward. Let's continue to engage, inspire, and build a better future together. Thank you.
Have an amazing weekend ahead, and I hope we meet soon at the next session of the World Teen Parliament. Thank you so much, everyone. Namaste. Have an amazing time ahead.